Welcome to the Disrupt Now podcast, episode 71.
What makes people excited is progress. You don't have to be at the goal yet to feel alive again. You have to be progress.
Just do right. Right may not be expedient. It may not be profitable, but it will satisfy your soul.
What matters most is finding your inner purpose.
Welcome to the Disrupt Now podcast, created by Natalie Viglione. This podcast is designed to help humans embrace change, transform, and evolve. Natalie is a cycle breaker, truth seeker, a priestess and healer, teacher, and a guide. This podcast's intent is to live and breathe truth, find and connect with authentic stories, and help raise consciousness. The purpose is to heal and awaken humans, to help you live the life that you want to live, a life of freedom and purpose. This will provide you with the tools, tips, and techniques to help you embrace the fact that it's necessary to disrupt the status quo. Please join Natalie and her guests on the journey to move humanity to a much higher level of consciousness and create more mindful conversations for us to explore together.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Disrupt Now podcast. I have a very exciting guest today, and she is Sophie McLean. And we're going to talk about the evolution of humanity, the Great Awakening, the great shift from HomoSapiens to HomoSpiritus. And don't worry, we'll go over what that means in detail. So let's talk about Sophie for a second so you get to know her before we dive in. Sophie's life has been eventful. That would be an understatement, actually. She's been a helicopter pilot, a teacher, a designer, a relief worker, a war refugee, a CEO, and there's more. She's been shot at, shipwrecked, and widowed, and we're going to talk about all this as well. But Sophie is a wisdom teacher. She leads transformational seminars, and where she really digs deep is examining the human network of ideas, beliefs, consciousness, and ego. So you can tell exactly why she is on this Disrupt Now podcast. Sophie, welcome. I am so excited to dive into all of these things.
Natalie, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
I was reading your bio and I thought, okay, we got to start clearly in the journey to get here. Yes. So, I mean, it feels like, and I think that many people listening, including myself, resonate with the fact that most of us have felt like we've lived 10 lifetimes in one, regardless of age, right? Because of because we're embracing and transforming change. So we're just we just keep going. But your list is long, my friend. So
I went for it, Natalie. I just life just took me. Frankly, it feels like I was taken over by a tsunami and I had to just swim. There is no way to resist. So, yes, it has been so far quite an adventure.
So, where did this really begin? Because obviously, it's diving into these opportunities, and that's when all of these different things can come up in our lives, but war refugee, shot at, shipwrecked.
Well, it did start very early, right? So just to create a context, every single human being is on a hero's journey or a heroine journey. So it really helps. Otherwise you're going to be left over with a Hollywood movie or a fairy tale, right? But if you take it as a mythological context, you are on a hero journey, right? So there is a call to adventure, and then there is a resisting of it, and then you go through hell, and you go back out again, and then you have a divine intervention and help, right? So the whole life is like that. So mine started very early on. I was born and brought up in Africa. Brought up, but in that specific country, there was a war. And I was 2 years old. I was in my mother's arm. My father was a farmer, and the farm got attacked.
Wow.
And so I was 2 hours in my mother's arm. It was all fine. And I watched it happen. So by machine gun fire, exactly like in the movie, right? So the windows explode, the wall goes with like a machine gun. You see in the movie, the curtain gets shredded. And my 20-year-old mother had a reflex. She threw me on the bed and she ran out. She ran out to get my father. She didn't think, how it is in the face of danger. You either attack or run away. Well, she ran away, but she had this bundle in her arm and she threw me on the bed. So that was a really big problem for me. Very big problem. And then I had a gift. I had a total gift. I had a divine presence. I call it an angel. It was, it just occurred as masculine, very big, very light. I can't describe him more than that. And he was there next to me. I was in total terror. And he gave me a clue. He said to me, you do not have to survive what is happening. You do not have to go into rage and anger and survival and refuse what's happening, that it's not fair. So he gave me, if you want, the key to dancing with what life gives you. I dismissed him. I just said, no, there is absolutely no way.
I just got thrown on the bed. Okay.
yeah, under machine gun fire. All right. So let's just get serious here.
Right.
But so all my life, I had this experience of being a fallen angel. Like I didn't listen to my angel, So from that moment on, that was the beginning of the hero's journey, right? Where I was a fallen angel, the bad person, the one that didn't listen to the divine. And it started that way, but I never forgot him. And it's only 30 years later that I went full circle and woke up to the gift I had. So that's how my journey started. So when you start with machine gun fire and terror and an angel, from then on you can only go more.
The only way is up from there.
Yeah.
So in waking up, and what I think is absolutely amazing is when we really look at pathways, we can clearly see why all the things happened the way they did, right? So what was so when you woke up to that consciousness, that awakening of realizing, what has transpired since that time?
Yes.
How did that slingshot you? How did that change?
Well, first I've got to say, so then from then on, I went on and on and on, right? So I, as a child, I was jumping off the roof trying to be Mary Poppins and, went under a car, a bus. I got raped. I lost a child. Then I lost my husband. So by the time I got to 30-year-old, I all had this tragedy, like on and on and on and on. And I'm going, and I was always where there was drama. It was like I was a magnet for all that. And I had this, awakening where I saw that I was repeating the 2-year-old incident over and over and over again, and that I had decided life was a war zone, and that is what I was getting. And at that moment, when I saw that I was actually the originator of everything I was attracting, That my husband dying didn't mean that he betrayed me or he threw me in on the bed under machine gun fire again. And, it just meant that he died. Those kind of things happen.
Right.
At that moment, I just got totally in the space of stillness and nothingness. I saw the first 30 years of my life as a hero's journey. And I was now returning home. It was time to connect to who I really was and remember who I really was. So from that moment on, the journey, I never had a drama and a tragedy after that, ever.
Wow.
Ever again, since the age of 30, and I'm 60-year-old. So, it's like amazing, right? And, but then I started my spiritual quest, reconnection, going home, what I call going home, being aligned with your soul.
Yes. I think that we have forgotten as a humanity that magic is real. Words are magic. Thoughts are magic. Action is magic. And your profound realization that you're the originator of that attraction, that you're the eye of the storm is exactly what this whole thing is about. What it's all about.
Yes, and that is the start of the quest, right? Or the second part of the journey after you go through hell and back is to be willing to be the originator of everything all the time with everybody. And this is what most people resist, because once you create yourself as a victim or as a sufferer, then you can point the finger and blame and resist and be miserable. But there is something absolutely extraordinary in this whole hero's journey, Natalie, is that we have a gift that many people don't realize, and this gift is a kinetic energy that moves you from being the sufferer to the originator, and that's called suffering. That energy of suffering, if you resist getting to the place of being the originator, you will suffer. And I used to hate suffering. I wanted to remove the suffering from the world and lighten it for everybody, until I saw my own experience. And it is through suffering that I got to a place where I now don't suffer anymore. It doesn't mean I don't have pain or sadness, but there is no suffering. Whatever happens, there is no suffering, which is exquisite. And then I look at all the mystic, and I look at the other wisdom teacher like Eckhart Tolle or Byron Katie, and they all got to that place through suffering.
Yes.
So
yes.
The training I give to my students is they start by bringing awareness to their suffering until they can disappear it.
Yes. That's so powerful. And I think that this is, I kind of feel like we're in this time of humanity evolution where, we've had the Great Awakening, and it's just getting more and more profound and we're getting to this really defined moment in time. So I feel like your message, this message of moving from a victim sufferer to a powerful co-creator, originator, it's like the evolution that we're being asked to make right now.
Well, I don't know if we're being asked. There is no resisting evolution. Yeah, there is no resisting evolution. You know what I mean? It would be like, okay, I'm going to resist gravity. I don't want gravity. I don't like gravity. It's not fair that there is gravity. I don't want it. Well, it doesn't matter. Gravity, if you mess with gravity, you'll end up on your butt. You know what I mean? Nobody asks you about it. It's a universal rule.
Yes. And look, as women, we don't really like gravity, okay? Because changes some things.
Yeah. Well, you can resist it all you want. It shall happen. So evolution is the same, right? HomoSapiens, which is the reign of the ego, has gotten us to an extraordinary place of technology and advances. I mean, really extraordinary. But like all transition, it has now turned against ourselves, and we have created a world of violence and division and cruelty. Little children are dying of hunger. Look at the Black Lives Matter movement. Look at the woman injustice. So a light is being shown, and it is time to transition and elevate to HomoSpiritus, which means being aligned with your soul, right? And any transition, I think you have children, Natalie, a birth is never easy. I mean, a birth is chaotic, painful, and this is what we are going through.
Yes.
So we have a choice. We either surrender and go through it with ease and grace, or we resist it, and then the suffering becomes enormous and insufferable until you will accept. But evolution doesn't even ask us, frankly. It's so much bigger than us, you know what I mean?
That's perfect. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's more like, hi, I'm shoving you off the cliff. Let's go.
Right. Yeah, and you make it fun.
Exactly.
Yeah. Might as well.
Yeah, might as well. I mean, and that is the beauty of acceptance and realization. So I love this HomoSpiritus. So I would love to dig in on that. And also the quest, mythology. Look, our world is and stories and history is really founded upon these quests. And that is magical. That feels magical to me. That feels like we're stepping into something way more profound than, I guess I need to change careers. I mean,
Yes, I agree with you. I mean, I really, the linearity of the material world is not attractive. Most people try to get somewhere and make it happen with force. I'd rather connect to authentic power and listen for what wants to happen, right? But to start that quest, it seems, I can't remember, I'm a spiritual shopper, so I hear and read so much and study so much, never know where I heard it. But anyway, somebody was saying that once upon a time, we were a little soul in the quantum field, right? And we decided to play games. So the first game we played was, okay, let's incarnate and you'll have everything you ever wanted. So we do that, and it's fun, and you get a life of abundance and bliss, and then we create mini game. And then one day, one of the souls says, I have an idea. Let's create a much, much, much interesting game, much more interesting. And here are the rules. You have no control whatsoever. You have total uncertainty. And you forget who you really are, because you cannot remember who you really are, because otherwise you created the game and you cannot lose. So you have to forget who you really are. So you think you can really die. That will be fun, right? And, it's like people going to a horror movie or war movie. They like the thrill. Okay, well, that's the game we're in. No certainty, total lack of control, and we forget who we really are. So there is a quest, the journey, the hero's journey, until you remember who you really are.
Yes. Oh, that is so beautiful. And I think that there's so many of us, it was interesting because as I moved into my 40s, I felt like I was more aligned than I had ever been, because I was listening to something else, tapping into something else. And it's the same thing like you had felt when you were, a child. You felt it, you knew it existed. It was there as a piece of you, but you denied it, or forgot, or more so,
I
hid it.
Yeah. I went, go away.
I would rather suffer. Thank you.
Yes. I'll make it by myself. Forget about the angel. Yeah. So so if we think about
the quest, if we think about stepping into that power, stepping into the magic of what we're really here for, the HomoSpiritus, and again, not being asked, being shoved into that right now, full force.
Yeah.
How can people just kind of go, all right, let's do this.
So I have a way, right? So there are many, many different paths, right? There is a long path, and I don't know, maybe because of the kind of adventure I had, I didn't want to spend 50 years remembering who I really was. I wanted to just make it happen before I was about to go to the other side. So my path is through understanding the very design of the quest. So I've led seminars to over 80,000 people in the world, all over the world, all ages, all religion. I mean, it doesn't matter. There is a specific design.
Right.
And so it's called the ego, right? So the ego, most people are very confused about what the ego is. Most people think the ego is being arrogant or a jerk. It's not that at all. That might be part of your ego, but I know a lot of nice people. I mean, I don't only work with arrogant jerks. So mostly I work with nice people.
Right.
But the ego, if you understand, Natalie, the ego is everything you identify with that is not who you really are. So you can identify with your age, with your gender, with the title of your business, with the amount of money you have, with your children, with being a mother. As human beings, we tend to identify with everything, right? Mm-hmm. We can put our hand on. Why do we do that? Because we forgot who we really are. If you remember who you really are, your essence, you do not need to identify with anything at all. Okay? So once you understand the very design of the quest and the steps that you have taken in the past, you experience coming back home. You remember who you really are. Then you can have fun creating the next iteration of the hero's journey, this time as the originator. So I like it because it's fast. You don't take 30 years to understand the design, and it's powerful. And what I also like is that I don't have any answers. My students have their own answer because they have been on the quest. And what I also love, Natalie, is that how bad we are with ourselves. Like we always blame ourselves, and we should do that, and we should be that way, and right. And in this, what I leave people with is the extraordinary admiration for themselves, that they are truly a heroine and a hero, that they have been on this quest, this blind quest, slaying dragons and learning from it. And I like people to just suddenly discover, you know what? I didn't do that badly. Oh, right. And look, I am now remembering who I really am, which is the whole point of this adventure, right? So once people get that, then all there is giving it back to others.
Right. Which is putting the gifts that you discover in the process out into the world. Yes.
The mystics go through enlightenment, right? And there is a level of enlightenment where you are asked by the divine to promise not to withdraw from the world. Mm-hmm. It happens again and again and again, because the temptation, once you know bliss, is to just bask into bliss. I mean, frankly, going in a cave in the side of a mountain is very tempting.
Yes, it is, actually, especially now.
Yep. But there is I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a code of honor, or I don't know exactly, but the spiritual energy needs to circulate back in the world. So once you reach that state of bliss where you remember who you really are, you need to put it back in the world.
Right. Step into that true role, which is the take and the give back, the constant.
Yeah. This is what you're doing, right, with your podcast.
Yeah. And you, by being on it.
That's right. That's
yes.
right. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
I think that, that's a very important, that's really important to talk about too, because what I hear, and I'm I love to observe words that people say, and especially women, because look, we have a lot more ancestral, we have things that we need to just get out of our bodies and our energies from all the things. So what I hear often is it's this fear to withdraw. It's the fear to withdraw into themselves, to not put their magic out because of maybe not understanding, but also thinking, maybe like you felt before in your life before you woke up to the reality of it. But, how do we get over that fear to not withdraw, to actually step in?
Yeah, taking the risk. Well, you have to understand the feminine, right? The feminine and the masculine. So the masculine is more, you can put it inside of the context of eros, right? It's transcendent. So the masculine goes for nothingness, stillness, consciousness. I'm talking about the masculine conscious, not the masculine ego, okay?
Yes, very different.
It's all about transcendence. The feminine conscious, the feminine ego is more victimized and poor me and a lot of pain. But the feminine conscious is all about agape, right? So it's the embodiment, the immanence of love. And this is, the masculine conscious is like the ray of the sun, but the feminine conscious is the flower that gives the beauty and the exquisiteness, right? So you could say that the sun reverses the flower in a way, but you see how they work together. So when you know about the feminine, and if you are someone, because women sometimes have a lot of masculine, right? So you have to know yourself. But you then surrender to the expression of that. It's not personal. You see, the whole point of the quest is to stop taking things personally, to be anxious, to be frightened, and how will I look, and what if I make a mistake, and what will people think? The whole point of the quest is to transcend that until you get to the point of oneness where it doesn't matter what people think. It doesn't matter if you make a mistake. What matters is to play the game.
And play it well, and play it intentionally.
And 100%. I love the word joy, right? It's very different from happiness. Happiness is dependent on the outside circumstance, but joy is an inner state of elevation. So if you look, the access to joy is fulfillment. And if you look at the word fulfilled, which I love words, right?
Yes.
So fulfilled, that means full and filled. You have to give 100%. So whatever your game is, as long as you give it all, you play 100%, you will access joy, regardless of the results. So yes, definitely do not let fear or anxiety stop you.
Yes.
You have a choice. You're the originator.
Yes. Now, this kind of works into your book, which I love the title, The Elegance of Simplicity. So isn't it interesting that we have, for various reasons, and that's like a whole other conversation, but we have really complicated what this discovery is and this process to get back into the self, the higher self, whatever words we want to put around that. So what are some key things do you think that people can understand around this concept of simplicity and awareness? Because clearly they're very connected and we don't have to convolute them so much.
Well, the first thing is, if it's complicated and you are confused, you want to know you're stuck in your ego. Mm-hmm. And you know that instinctively, for example, when you speak to your children or when somebody tells you a story and you're listening and it is so confusing and who did they met and what happened and what did they do, right? So the moment you're confused and it's complicated, just stop everything. There is a lie, not like intentional, conscious lie, but somebody's being inauthentic. They're not being themselves. They're stuck in a story. So the elegance of simplicity, and that is a path to remember who you really are, is to give up all your story. You know, the path to a spiritual life is always through giving up. And when there is no more stories, well, life is very simple.
Right.
You know, you're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. You cannot be a little bit pregnant. That doesn't exist.
No, it does not.
You either sit down or stand up. You cannot be in between.
Maybe unless you're doing squats. That might be a little different, but
that
still, you're good.
No, to be sitting down, you have to have your butt against a chair or the ground. Yeah,
Right.
no,
Right.
Squat is standing up.
True.
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting concept. So if it's and you can attribute this to many things. So thinking about, you know, people that are listening that are really ready to like go start that company that they've been brewing on for who knows how long, enter the number of years here. But that if it's complicated and you're forcing it to come through and not feeling like it's flowing through you, what would you tell them? What would you say?
Stop. You know, I used to be somebody, Natalie, when I met a door closed, I would take a hammer and I will break down the door. And I'm quite strong, right? So I could do it. I was exhausted, but I could do it, a lot of force.
Yeah.
And when I stopped that, the delicious way to live life is you meet a closed door, you meet a closed door, you meet a closed door. You keep looking for the one that is open, right? Let me give you an example. So I go, I'm living in New York City. There is a pandemic. So from March to November, I'm not seeing my parents, which are 85-year-old, and my father is not well, right? So in November, I said, this is it. I'm going. I knew I was taking a risk because once you go to Europe, they don't let you go back to the States. And I'm not a US citizen, so I knew. So no victim there, but I said, no, I'm going to my parents. So I take a lawyer, I request an exception to be let back in after 6 weeks. No, I tried 3 times, 3 closed door. No, you're not coming back. You spend 6 weeks in France. We don't want you. And then my lawyer said, oh, there is another way. I said, really? And I was waiting, right? No reaction, nothing. I knew there was another door. He said, well, go for 2 weeks to Bermuda. And after 2 weeks in Bermuda, they'll let you in because you would have quarantined in Bermuda. So there I am, as I'm talking to you, in Bermuda, in front of the most turquoise sea I've ever seen in my life, with coconut tree and flowers. And I'm quarantining in Bermuda. I would not have had a vacation if I had resisted. Do you understand? So,
yes.
But I surrendered to what wanted to happen. And life, I call life with a capital L, is so kind and so powerfully wanting to give you everything if you only get yourself out of the way. So when life is difficult, stop and give up resisting, give up your opinion, give up being the victim, give up and listen for what wants to happen. Sometimes it takes a bit of time,
right?
Because time is not in the spiritual, right? There is no time, it's timeless. Yes. But I think that's what is called faith.
Yes.
And you will see that life is the most delicious and fulfillment intention entity there is.
Absolutely. Yes, the fact that you're sitting in Bermuda right now.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, if that's not a perfect example, you know, it's just, because it did want to give you that. And that, just feeling that before you move back into a space of, feeling kind of in this weird bubble.
Yeah. And the size of apartment in New York City. I live in a tiny little apartment. So I am enjoying the space here very much. I got a gift.
Yes.
Right. And life occurs, as that, a series of gifts, and then you're left with gratitude.
Exactly. And we get, I think the great, underscore here is that it's when you say no and keep, like you said, banging down that door, giving into that force mode. It's exhausting. It's exhausting.
It is. And ultimately you never win, right? Because there is always another closed door, and you do not experience this love and this gratitude.
Yes.
Right. So that's the suffering. That's the suffering we were talking about. And Natalie, in my book, so my book is the story of my quest until the moment where I return home, right? Mm-hmm. And I put there all the doors that I tried to break down, and then the surrendering. Because people can recognize themselves. It's the same for everybody. We all do the same thing.
Yes.
Right. So that's why I wrote this book, so that people could identify, saying, okay, that's what surrendering means. All right. That is what acceptance means. It's not being a doormat or not doing anything. Right. It's very different. Yeah.
Right. And it's also, we're not sitting here saying that doesn't come with its own, tragedies or crises moments, or, it doesn't come with those things that are going to clearly be a moment we need to surrender into, but it's the after. Yeah. It's the reaction, right?
It's what we do with it, right? But Natalie, some people said, "Oh, your life," like you did at the beginning of the course, saying, "Is that for real?" Right? But somehow, when you have so much tragedy and so much difficulty, you have to wake up. You have to. It's just like so insufferable. The despair I was in. I mean, my husband died 5 days after I got married on honeymoon. You understand? I mean, I know. It's like, what? And so you have to do something. I had a lot of students that had a life without tragedy, a life that we call fine. How are you? Fine. Right? Well, that is more difficult for me to wake up because there is no incentive.
Yes.
See, my despair was so insufferable that I was going to find a way somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. But if you just find, then you go anesthetized. You go to sleep. Mm-hmm. And so I have a lot of admiration for people that are on the path to spirituality with not this kind of incentive. I really have a lot of respect.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Would you say, or what are your thoughts around? So it's very interesting to me because I feel like maybe there is with because I have not had that experience myself either. Plenty of tragedy to go through and moments of awakening and realization. But if people feel like they've had just a fine, is that because there was no embrace to what life was trying to provide, to go into moments of out of the bubble, out of the comfort bubble? Like, what? How do you feel about that?
Well, there is, I would not be able to give an answer. They will have to look at why their hero's journey is that way. But there is also karma and destiny that comes into play. There is choices. It's you cannot isolate one thing. But once you remember who you really are, then you understand why you had the circumstances you had. Like, I can be fully responsible for the circumstances I had in my life.
Right.
Like I said, I'm the originator of it all. So I really like this clarity. It's peaceful, right? So when the mystery and the confusion disappears, why you have that life rather than another, when you meet who you really are, it's like an essence. It's beyond the five senses. You cannot imagine it. You cannot see it. You cannot touch it. It's an experience.
Yes.
So I call it an essence. It's very much like a perfume. You cannot catch it, but it's there, right? And the mystic says that your soul or your essence has an intention for you to heal or learn what you didn't in the previous lives. And I must say, it makes sense to me now that I have remembered who I really am. I went, I learned and elevated myself. So,
Right.
So every single person will be able to say it for themselves.
Right.
And that's also what I love in this work. It's like nobody can tell you. You know, but you don't know at an intellectual level. It's a recognition.
Right.
You are home. This is it. You're not going back home. You're not at home. You are home.
Right.
So,
right.
It's
that's a very interesting concept, because I've known people close in my life, and it was very interesting in moments of despair, moments of just a total lack of clarity of why this person is in this experience. I remember she specifically used to say, "I just want to go home. I just want to go home." What do you mean? What do you mean? You are home. No, I want to, and I have actually found myself in my early days saying that when I knew I was in a circumstance that was so wrong for me, and the tragedy that I went through because I kept denying it, but knowing, I remember saying all the time, I just want to go home. This just isn't right.
Yes. And the shift from HomoSapiens to HomoSpiritus is when you are the home. You are it. And that is when there is nowhere else to go. Everything is perfect. There is nothing to prove, nothing to change. You can dance with the perfection of it all.
That's beautiful. And you just go on the adventure, like Bermuda.
That's right. And
it's my home for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, people say to me, well, you used to be an adventurer. You don't do anything. And I said to them, excuse me, I am now leading those courses with the most extraordinary people in the world that are on the spiritual path. That is an adventure so way beyond flying helicopter. I am on the biggest adventure of my life.
Right. Which that's another thing that people, I think the message is HomoSapien to HomoSpiritus. Is you're moving from 3D into another realm, into an esoteric, into ethereal, into something that is an experience beyond, like right here.
Yeah, while you include right here, right? So there is we still have to be responsible for being in the material plane, operating with the five senses and the mind. But now you have the connection to authentic power, to guidance, to what we call intuition. You have gifts and miracles happen. And I mean, can you imagine? I hope people that are listening are willing to accept being on this beautiful planet with all the tragedy and the difficulty of what human being creates, and having guidance, intuition, authentic power. Life is then great.
Yes. I can't, the word magic is just so in my, that's just what magic. It's just, it's everywhere. And there's so many signs. And okay, so what is big for you right now? The adventures that you're going on with people right now, like what is?
So I'm designing. For the moment, all my courses are closed. I mean, they're going on, but I'm designing a new course, which I'm very excited about, and I'm using the hero's journey. Right? I don't know if I'm going to keep it for women only or if I'm going to open it to both. I haven't chosen yet, but it's going to be 8 to 10 months course where people are going to go from their birth to where they are now, so that they're going to see the whole design of the quest, remember who they really are, and then create the next journey of giving it back, right? So I'm very excited with that. I think it should be ready by the end of March or April, so that's great. And the book that I wrote, this is what people are going to do. They're going to, the book, The Elegance of Simplicity, is my own hero's quest, and they're going to have their own. So that they get to the source of their entire life. So I'm very, that's what I'm doing.
That's powerful.
One of my projects. Yeah, it's great.
And that is an epic journey. And everyone's going on their own epic journey with you.
I know. Yeah. And the book, I wrote the book to inspire people, right? It's on Audible and Kindle and hard copy, but I shared everything. I mean, from my sex adventure to my despair to my joy to everything, because I want people to recognize themselves and be inspired that they can do it. They can do it. They can remember who they really are.
Right.
It's not a mystery. It's not easy, but it's simple.
Yes. And we all have that opportunity. There's not, I think that a lot of people get stuck in, well, that's just, some people are just gifted, or that's just, I can't do that because I've heard people say that, and that is the biggest.
Yep. I've done my work with my nieces and nephews. They were 14 and 15, and they are now 25. And, they are fantastic human being. They are free. Can you imagine at 15-year-old getting the whole story? Oh my, how marvelous, right? So my oldest student was 83.
Oh God, I love that, because it is never too late. Again, time is the construct that we created, but we don't have to interact in those ways. We don't have to adhere to time. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And this woman, her daughter, who was 6 years old or something, said to her, "What are you doing in that course? You have one foot in the grave." And the woman looked at her daughter and said, "Well, where do you think the other one is?" On Earth, so I'm handling it.
Oh, wow. Do you hear that, everyone? Time doesn't matter. Age doesn't matter.
No.
Oh, Sophie, this is beautiful. And so we'll have a complete write-up on you, and you can connect with Sophie at sophiemclean.com and Sophie McLean .access to awareness. That's on Instagram, right?
Yes, I think so.
Sorry. It's good. We'll have all of it somewhere. Yeah.
The thing to do is subscribe to my website and to my Facebook group called Thinking Consciously, because I put videos nearly every day, little tidbits of wisdom, and then you get the newsletter, so you know what courses are coming and all that.
Oh, perfect. Well, this is a powerful time. And I think that a lot of people are going to be moving into a space to understand that guidance is going to be of massive value, more so than I think at any time before, just because of the physical reality of what's taking place. So
the shift,
timing, yes.
Don't resist it. It will happen anyway.
Exactly. With or without you. You choose.
That's right.
Oh, thank you, Sophie. I look forward to seeing the course, and thank you again for being on the podcast.
Natalie, thank you so much for having me. I have a great life because I get to meet people like you. Thank you very much.
The same. Give back.
Absolutely. That's how it works.
Thank you, everyone, for joining, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to today's episode. And please, in the meantime, if you know anyone or you want to pitch your story, please get in touch with us at disruptnowprogram.com, or you can get in touch with me on Instagram at disruptwithnatalie. Of course, all of the information is on our website. Again, thank you. And in the meantime, remember, no status quo.